Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Operation Freedom Briefings. The goal of these briefings and my weekly radio show, Operation Freedom, which airs every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern out of the People's Republic of Ann Arbor through Wham Talk 1600's Freedom Bunker, is to provide you information the bought-off lamestream fake media will not touch. Look, you can join us for the radio show. We have great guests, great analysis, information the deep state's tentacle, the bought-off lamestream fake media will never present. It's very easy. Go to davejanda.com every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern. Go to the Listen Live button. Hit that. It's free. It takes you to Wham Talk 1600 streaming service. Hit play and you're with us. Again, we're there every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern. Also available on this YouTube channel 24/7. Also available 24/7 at davejanda.com. Both the free, the public side, as well as the subscription side. More on that later. The title of today's presentation is President Trump and the First Lady versus COVID, the China virus, coronavirus, whatever you want to call it. Let's start out with some just basic statistics that the bought-off lamestream fake media does not want you to know about. This is through the United States government. Survival rates, recently updated for people, if infected, with COVID-19, coronavirus, the China virus. The success rates, age group wise, from 0 to 19 years of age, the survival rate is 99.997%. Yet there are a number of folks in that age group that believe that if they get it, based on the bought-off lamestream fake media's narrative that they push down the public's throat now for 9 months, that they're a goner. If you're between the ages of 20 and 49, the survival rate is 99.98%. If you're in the age group from 50 to 69, the First Lady is in the very low end of that age group, 50 to 69 years of age, 99.5%. And if you're 70 and above, as is President Trump, 74, and remember, this includes 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds, the occasional 100-year-old individual who gets this, the survival rate for those 70 and above is 94.6%. Now, why do the vast majority of Americans at this point believe they're petrified that if they get this illness, and again, it can have devastating ramifications, but so can the flu, and so can getting in your car and getting in an automobile accident, or getting on your bike and going for a bike ride. There are devastating ramifications to everything we do in our lives. But the narrative has been pushed by the deep state's tentacle, the bought-off lamestream fake media, and their other tentacle, the big medicine tentacle, through Big Pharma, the vaccination industrial complex group, through the AMA big medicine contingent, that if you get this, you're done. But the data, they're always screaming about data. The data tell us that even in the most elderly population, 70 and above, 94.6%. Now, one of the other problems is the politicians, the deep state politicians, propaganda operation that's been in effect for 9 months. Look at Joe Biden. Joe Biden the other day said in the active duty military, 6,114 active duty military service members have died from COVID. Now you think, wow, Well, that's the youngest group in here. That's the 0 to 19 and the 20 to 49. Wow. I mean, it's supposed to be 99.997 and 99.98. What's going on? Well, I don't know. But I'm not sure where Biden got those numbers, but they don't exist. I mean, he probably dug them out of his basement somewhere. He said 6,114 military service members have died from COVID. The data, the fact, the answer, 7. 7. No, that's 7 too many. Don't get me wrong. I mean, let's face it. When this virus reared its head out of that lab in Wuhan, China, what happened in China was pure, gross, either negligence or deliberate evil to allow that virus to spread outside of that Wuhan area, let alone outside of China, and adversely affect millions of individuals, including the President of the United States and the First Lady, and ever-growing number of people in the White House. More on that later. I mean, for all intents and purposes, China unleashed a bioweapons attack that attacked the leadership of our country. Yet, do you hear the bought-off lamestream fake media talking about that? No! Because China is the deep state's darling. It's their technocracy movement, as Pat Woods has pointed out on our platform. And then we got Joe Biden spewing garbage and getting people all wound up. Well, let's face it, the more people fear, the more people are upset, the better chance they will vote for him. It's sick. But it's not just that one statistic he was off on. How about this? In September 20th, 2020, Biden, quote, it is estimated that 200 million Americans have died from COVID probably by the time I finish this talk, end quote. 200 million. That means 2/3 of the American population, according to him, had died from COVID by September 20th, 2020. Well, then you understand why a lot of people, especially the people that watch the CNNs and the MSNBCs and the, if you will, Foxes of the world and read the Washington Post and the New York Times and listen to Rachel Maddow and Anderson Cooper, and it's no wonder they think, God, if I get this, I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm gone. But that wasn't the only time Joe Biden spewed garbage. In June of 2020, he said 120 million Americans had died of COVID. Now look, one's too many. One is too many. But let me tell you something. As a person who practiced medicine for 32 years on the front line of healthcare delivery, and to this day, for 35 years, has focused my efforts on prevention in the research realm. You want to know how this could have been prevented? Stricter control over that lab in Wuhan. Who, by the way, during the Obama administration, it appears through the NIH, and in fact through Fauci's division of the NIH, received some funding. Yeah, you don't hear about that, do you? No. You don't hear about that through the bought-off lamestream fake media. The independent media has spoken about this. But you've never heard that on CNN or MSNBC or PBS or ABC, CBS, NBC, you name it. Or even Fox, for that matter. You think Neil Cavuto is going to talk about that? Or Never Trumper, Brett Baer, Never Trumper, Martha McCallum? Yeah. So it's no wonder that there's all this misrepresentation about, well, if I get this, I'm dead. And then this past week, we've seen what happened that the president, the first lady, the press secretary, the head of the campaign, the head of the Republican National Committee, and we'll go through the list in a little bit, came down with COVID. And our thoughts and prayers are with all of them. But the other day I tweeted the following. It went viral. This is what I tweeted. This past week, the virus, COVID, has apparently mutated. It can now differentiate between Republicans and Democrats, and it is even more contagious to Republican members of the Senate Judiciary Committee and the White House staff working on President Trump's reelection. That tweet rang a bell amongst many, many people. I think to date it has about 175,000 impressions on Twitter. And what was I referring to when I said that the virus, can you, in the past week, do you know of anybody, have you heard of anybody, Democrat-wise, in Congress or on the Judiciary Committee or in the opposing campaign that has developed this? No, but here's who has, that we're aware of to date. President Trump, the First Lady, Melania, the RNC chairwoman, Ronna Romney McDaniel, the head of President Trump's campaign, Bill Stepien, presidential advisor to both the president and the First Lady, Hope Hicks, former advisor Kellyanne Conway, reportedly 11 staff members, Chris Christie, the former governor of New Jersey who worked on debate prep with President Trump, Senator Tillis, Republican from North Carolina, Senator Lee, Republican from Utah, both who sit on the Judiciary Committee, Senator Ron Johnson, who sits on the Intel Committee, 3 media members who reportedly all had worn masks all the time, President Trump's what's called body man. Now, the body man, his name is Nick Luna. Mr. Luna runs the Oval Office operations. So the information the president gets, the documents, when President Trump asks for something to be done, Nick Luna is in charge of that. He developed it. And then Monday morning, it came out that Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany developed it, as well as 2 of her staff members. Don't you find that odd? Don't you find it odd that all these individuals have developed COVID? And here we are, and we still haven't heard of a positive finding from anybody on the D side, deep state side. As you all know, the course of events here, the president on Thursday night, he was actually interviewing with Sean Hannity on this past Thursday night, and he mentioned that Hope Hicks had tested positive and that he and the First Lady were going to quarantine because of that. Well, when I heard that, he has been around other staff members who had turned positive and had not quarantined. To me, that meant he had a rapid test on Thursday night that showed he was positive, and that they had to go with the nasal swab test for confirmation, and that's what he was waiting on. And late that night, early Friday morning, he and the First Lady sent out separate tweets, and the physician, Dr. Sean Conley, who's done a very good job, even though the media has badgered him and harassed him, he's done a very good job, sent out a memorandum to the public that the president and the First Lady had tested positive and were doing well. It appears that later Friday morning, the president's fever had elevated. He was having a bit of coughing, a bit of a runny nose, no shortness of breath reportedly. But because he's the president, he's going to be monitored very, very closely. And it appears that at one point on Friday, late morning, his oxygen saturation. So that they put this little probe on your finger. It doesn't stick in. It's just like they tape it on, and it measures your oxygen saturation. So let me give you an example. When I had my retinal surgery recently, because I had a detached and torn retina, my oxygen saturation. Because I asked the anesthesiologist, what was my O2 sat running? Was I on any oxygen? No. What was my O2 sat running? Between 97, 98. Okay. So the number we watch out for on oxygen saturation is around 94. Dr. Connolly said late Friday morning, the president briefly dropped below 94. They administered oxygen, not in a tube, not in a face mask, but what's called a nasal cannula with a thing with the two little prongs. They put that in your nose. And at a low level, low flow, 2 liters, about the lowest flow you can get, his oxygenation bounced right up and they took him off and he was doing fine. But because his oxygenation had dropped that one time, he had fever, he had a bit of a cough, he had some chills. They decided, you know what, he might have to go on some medications here, and in so doing, let's get him over to Walter Reed. Now, as you know, he walked to the helicopter under his own power. And he also did a little video before he left. And still, the media made it sound like he was at death's door. It was absolutely deep state fear porn, and that's what they wanted. They wanted people to panic. They're not there to tell you the truth. They're there to make you fearful. That's what they do. That's what they're paid to do. Which is why you should tune them out across the board and stick with independent media. So then, on Friday, he goes to Walter Reed, and they gave him, and I'm not going to talk about what I would recommend or anything of that nature, my friends who are infectious disease specialists would recommend, but and it obviously worked. So great kudos to the medical team. And one other thing. My experience in Washington is that you're never going to be told the whole story. So when you hear that the president was put on Regeneron's antibody cocktail, if you will, and it's 2 monoclonal antibodies, and it's experimental, and it's in a clinical trial phase, and so that's pretty early in the process, but they gave it to him, and obviously it worked. You're only going to get part of the story, and not all of the story. So we don't know what else at the time he was on. They did mention that he was on vitamin D and zinc and melatonin and aspirin that he take. That's the only medication he normally took. And Pepcid, which is like the stomach medicine, but that's been shown to be effective in some studies on COVID, on coronavirus. So he was on that. And then it appears, so that's Friday, and then it appears that he was doing quite well, but Friday night they decided to start him on a 5-day course of remdesivir, which is an antiviral medicine. It's on emergency authorization from the FDA to be used. So they gave him the remdesivir, and again, his fever was gone as of late Friday morning and has never raised its head again. At the press conference on Saturday, Dr. Connolly mentioned that the president was doing well, he was improving, and that his oxygen saturations were around 96%, which is great, because remember, the number that we don't want to see it, 94, but again, my colleagues tell me many people that have this illness have very low oxygen saturations and they don't particularly feel short of breath. So again, 96 is a great number. Vitals were stable, everything looking good. And then on Saturday, that was Saturday, and then on Sunday they presented saying, well, they've also started him on a steroid. And the reason being is because that can help reduce the anti-inflammatory effect that can go into hyperdrive in some folks that develop, that are exposed to COVID and develop symptoms. They said he was doing great, vitals were great, doing great, way ahead of the curve. And then the media started attacking the medical team, actually from the very get-go, that they weren't telling him every piece of information. Well, there's this law called HIPAA that Bill Clinton helped initiate. Well, it was in his administration, it was put into effect. And that is how much information you, the physician, and the team can present to the public. So basic generalities, the president obviously gave approval for the basic generalities to be put on the table, but you can't go in, even if it's not Donald Trump, you can't go into detail. It's against the law. So what the media was asking Dr. Conley and the Walter Reed team to do is break the law. Well, just give us everything. Well, no. There are HIPAA laws in place that say we can go to a certain point. We can tell you how he's doing. We can tell you his condition, stable, unstable. He was stable all along. Improving. We can tell you some generalities with his vital signs, generalities with his treatment. But we're not going to give you everything because we can't.